You've led simulation labs at Mass General. You've built robotic systems and now a layer one like blockchain for healthcare. What sort of pulled you into this space?
One episode shocked me and literally derailed me into the healthcare industry. The only option for me is to build a blockchain from scratch. I couldn't even use the code of the existing one as a starter because I said if I do that, I have to start with something built around compliance.
Gianluca, thank you so much for hopping on today's podcast. I've been really excited to speak to you today and learn about the great work you are doing at Circular with blockchain for both healthcare and life sciences. And for the audience listening, we have Gianluca De Novi, founder, CEO, and CTO at Circular Protocol, joining us today. Gianluca, thanks so much for hopping on today's podcast.
Well, thank you in first place for inviting. I think it's always a great opportunity to be able to tell a story.
Likewise. Yeah. And so, Gianluca, to get things started, you have a very interesting background. You've led simulation labs at Mass General. You've built robotic systems and now a layer one like blockchain for healthcare. What sort of pulled you into this space, and what were you aiming to achieve when you launched Circular Protocol?
Well, let's at first tie up everything because it seems like they are very different things. Okay, my background is mainly academic. So I have a PhD in robotics and I am an expert in high performance computing. So anything tied to a GPU has been something I've been studying in my life. So robotics, AI, computer vision, blockchains, they have in common the high performance computing part. Then at some point in my life, I was more leaning toward the automotive industry. But one episode shocked me and literally derailed me into the healthcare industry, and that's where I've been doing my research and my career. I've been a faculty at Harvard Medical School for now 16 years. I've been a director of medical device and simulation lab at Master Brigham. And I've been working mostly on DoD-funded research for the healthcare industry. On the side, it's not really on the side because it's been always a parallel aspect of my life. I've been involved in several companies, and they've been literally in surgery simulation, surgical robotics, and the surgical robotics I'm speaking is autonomous surgical robotics, so not only teleoperated. And then I ended up working with blockchains during COVID time. During COVID time, I had a lot of free time because we were literally forced to be at home. And I was looking for, ideas because you get ready for when you go back to work and everything goes to normal. And during that period, I was thinking about, they announced that they were going to fast track vaccines. And I said, oh, wow, if they fast track the vaccines for COVID at the end of the pandemic, is going to be a nightmare from a regulatory perspective. I've been a researcher, so I've been complying with DIPA, IRB protocols. Has been always like a very painful part of conducting research and working in the healthcare space. So I said, this is going to become a total nightmare. And I said, and one thing that is going to happen is going to be hard to track truthful data from data that will be biased, that will be tampered. And that's normal because that's a natural reaction of the industry and market. And then at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to find a way to create auditable data. That was my goal. I didn't think to build a blockchain, to be honest. What a fool would I be to build a blockchain? It's not like a very simple thing to build. So I said, I'm going to use a blockchain of anyone else. I'm going to find the best one that works for the job. But that's when I had the sad finding that no one of the existing architecture would make the work because very simple compliance requirements, not built for healthcare. They are built for DeFi, which at that time was even completely
Mm,
unregulated.
mm,
And then I said, "Oh wow, this is gonna, if we got now what is like 6 years after COVID to start finally seeing some initial regulation on the crypto. Imagine for the healthcare, this how long was gonna take." And then I said, "No, I cannot wait to have regulators learning about blockchain and rule about blockchain.
mm,
We need to build a blockchain that is specifically designed for regulators that does the job instead of them." And then I said, I think the only option for me is to build a blockchain from scratch. I couldn't even use the code of the existing one as a starter because I said if I do that, I have to start with something built around compliance since day one. And then I started studying all the different architecture and finding all the different solutions. And I identified some limitations in the existing architectures that would instead be addressed in the one I built and that are obviously designed to offer more compliance, offer support for governments. Like if you think about for a government that wants to work with a blockchain, it's absolutely plausible. You say, well, I want to use the blockchain to certify information, to certify important data. But there is one problem. Let's say I want to use, I don't know, Ethereum.
mm.
Now, if I use that blockchain, Ethereum, for certifying data, which means I have data, I extract a signature of the data, and I put just the signature on the blockchain. Actually, I can show you
Sure,
a
go ahead.
little a little example of that because I think it might be very very good for people to to see.
Right.
Um, okay, so I have to share the screen, and here it is.
And then why?
All right, look at this. This is really a demonstration. Okay, so imagine that this white part of the screen is a hospital, is a, I don't know, any company, any institution, and this is where the data lives inside a private cloud somewhere. Here there is like the icon of the cloud. Instead, here in the black, in the darkness, there is the blockchain, which means that whatever lives on the blockchain lives in multiple copies on computers of completely unrelated strangers, people that
Mm,
don't know each other. They just have a copy of this blob of information. They don't even know what that is. So let's say that we create a record in an hospital. Okay, so the record is generated inside the hospital. So we have like Mario Achille Rossi was
name.
born, blah, blah, blah. So the data is here now, but immediately a certificate is created on chain. Obviously, this is
Mm,
not really a complete certificate. It's just like a very simplified version. Certificate, of course, for whoever understand cryptography includes a hash, but
right.
includes also some metadata. And then you have your record in the hospital, so the data is secure, private, nobody can see it. And then you have this blob of numbers here. That what can you do with this? Well, all right, let's say that we make another certificate. We take a test for the patient.
Mm,
So because this is incremental data, all the time you go to the hospital, you increase that record with new stuff. So
right.
first of all, you need to make sure you can add as many certificates as you want, and you see the data certificated. So I can go and say, is this data valid, or someone has been adding or removing stuff? So if I go here and I ask to validate now, I don't know if you can really read, but when it says in green here, success, signature valid, is saying, yeah, the data is valid, it hasn't been altered. But
Mm,
let's say that I am the bad actor, okay? And I see that the patient came here on the 25th of March, and I say, all right, you know what? Let's lie. Let's say they came here on the 15th of March.
mm,
And now I go do the validation again. What happened is that now it failed to
fails.
verify that signature. Why is that? Because this change was not tracked by the system.
Mm,
So if I recertify the data now and I leave 15, that 15 is going to become certified, but the change is going to be tracked. So
right.
that means that whenever you have a record, you can create a auditing trail a history, a log of how that data changes over time. And even if you move that data from this cloud you sell to someone else, it's going to carry the connection with this auditing trail.
Yep.
Now, probably it's not immediate to understand this, but I will help you understand this. It is extremely important in a world based on data to have auditable data for a million different reasons. Let's go for the most obvious one that touches everybody here. My relative went to the hospital, died because of a malpractice case, and it's like the third biggest cause of death in the United States, malpractice. So, and someone wants to get out of trouble, can go and tamper the data. You have a log, yes, of course, but do you have an IT department? You have people that are on your payroll.
Right.
You own their data, you own the log, you can do whatever you want. Nobody can really change that. Nobody can really avoid that. And even if it's not the organization, it can be the person, the employee. So, but that is the most obvious thing. But whoever controls data today can literally control a lot of decisions on pricing, on politics, on geopolitics, on a lot of things.
Right.
I don't know. You have NIH holding data for, I don't know, certain trials that were done 20 years ago. I think you want to make sure that the data didn't change over time, because a lot of people have been putting hands on this data. Why would they want to change that data, someone may ask? Well, because that data was going to be used for studies, for training AI, for many type of application. And if you bias that data in a credible way, you can indirectly control studies, the results. You
Right.
can control the outcome of an AI training. So you can have, for instance, a biased LLM that when you type a prompt to give you the certainty of something, is instead going to give you
Yep.
a biased response. So you understand that in a world where we are investing more and more into AI, into data, into statistics, having the certainty that that data is in its original state is an extremely important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's fascinating how you're building, like you're using the blockchain to power the certification of this data, specifically for like a healthcare use case like patient records, like having, like you're saying, that audit trail, but then being able to know, okay, there's a failure in the signature here, some manipulation happened, right? Without the blockchain
Mhm.
and having that certification up front and that data sit on chain, there's no really way to like truly say, hey, was this manipulated or not? Because like you said, teams can own their IT departments, they can go back into their softwares or systems and kind of clean up the audit trail. With the blockchain, like earlier you said, the listeners listening, like everything is based on like a cryptographic hash, right? Like you can't really manipulate the data on chain because it's stored, over
It's
time.
decentralized.
It's
That's why
decentralized. That's
it's
so
multiple copies on different computers around the world. You should, assuming that you have like a quantum computer very big that we still don't have today, to break the cryptography, you have to break, first of all, probably thousands of this cryptography, of these signatures. And then you will have to do the same thing all over, all for all these computers. So
right.
it's not trivial. And as of today, it's a standard practice and considered immutable when something is on the blockchain.
Right.
And that's why you have to create multiple certificates. You are creating that auditing trail because you cannot modify the existing one. There's no way to modify that one.
Yeah. Well said. And before we get to the architecture that powers this, because I'm curious about that. You've called circular, and I've seen this on your website, like a fourth generation blockchain. Like, what does that mean to be fourth generation in this context?
Yeah. So the fourth generation comes from my interpretation of the technological landscape. For me, the first generation is absolutely Bitcoin. Was a first implementation designed to be cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
And that was the that was the main purpose. Didn't have any additional purpose. Was a much more simplified architecture with only one thing in mind. Then there is a second generation, which is the introduction of smart contracts. So now I see not only the decentralization of a ledger, but also the decentralization of a computation. So I can execute algorithms in a decentralized manner, which means that I want to know what's the result of A plus B, but instead to trust my own computer that tells me A plus B, because someone can give me a software that is going to give me a wrong results,
Right.
I can ask every computer in the network what's the result of A plus B, and then have a consensus on what is the result. Obviously, you're not going to use for A plus B, but for much more important
Right.
things. And in particular, the smart contract itself comes from the idea that whatever we do today, we need a third party which is going to be executing the, the transaction.
Hmm.
And you have to assume that that third party is impartial. Imagine when you have to buy and sell a house. But we all learned that when you hand a check, people become a little bit less impartial. So it is a, it's a, why should I have a person doing this when I can have a decentralized system that does this in a cold manner and
Right.
execute the transaction, and I know it's going to go in the only possible way because it's algorithmic. So
Hmm.
that's the second generation. Then there is a third generation, and the third generation is was instead in the direction of scalability of blockchains. So I have a system that now can do several other things aside moving numbers, but can I make this thing grow bigger and have throughputs that are very large so that can scale on mass adoption? And that is pretty much what happened when other blockchains like Solana came to the market. But even at this stage, we've been focused mostly on the DeFi, on
Hmm.
the decentralized finance, and not on other important applications. The fourth generation, in my interpretation of history of the technology of blockchain, is a combination of two factors. One factor is the programmability that has to go beyond the smart contract. So I can program a smart contract, but there are many other things that I can program and I can compute. For example, I can have a decentralized processing of data,
Hmm.
large volume of data, because a smart contract is a small algorithm that can process very few lines of information.
Hmm.
But what if I want to have 2 petabyte of data analyzed in a decentralized fashion?
Hmm.
Or what if I want to have a software that is a decentralized software that is changing its behavior depending from its jurisdiction, for example?
Hmm.
So it's a more programmable blockchain than a simple smart contract with other programmable elements, not only the smart contract itself, and other tools, this time not designed only for the decentralized finance, but for many other applications. And in particular, the fourth generation, in my opinion, is a data trust layer. I provide all the tools that you need to verify, protect, and process data.
Yeah. And it makes sense that you're focused on this is a nice segue into the work that you guys are doing in like healthcare and life sciences, because there is that need for programmability beyond like smart contracts. There's so much data. Like we just saw a simple example with like a single patient record, but in a large hospital or academic medical center, like you have thousands of hundreds of these, and each record is filled with like changes in data, like weekly, monthly, yearly. So
Mhm.
to like help kind of round it out, can you help us like show us like how your architecture for circular on this like L1 is able to handle both like the public and private chains on the same network? Can you show us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, so this let make a little introduction here. So Depending from the application, it's required a different level of privacy.
Mm.
If I have a crypto application, I am expecting eventually, not necessarily, but eventually, that there is a fully public ledger where everybody can go there and have access to the ledger. But let's imagine that now a scenario where there are like 20 companies part of a consortium and they want to use a blockchain, but not to offer transparency to everybody around the world, but to offer
Mm.
transparency to everybody working in these 20 companies.
Mm.
So now the scope of that privacy, it's much, much more reduced.
Right.
And the problem is that with the existing paradigms, you cannot change the level of privacy of the existing blockchains, or they are one way, or they are another way, or you need to set up a new private blockchain, but you have to
Right.
restart a little bit the the the, the network. You have to
Yeah.
rebuild a new network around that blockchain.
And especially in industries like healthcare that are both public and private, and like life
Yeah, so
too.
I don't know if in general, let's consider this like a little lesson about how a blockchain network works. So there are many nodes, which are computers, normal computers. So a node is a computer, which might be my computer, your computer, doesn't matter. And each computer has its own copy of the blockchain, right? So these blocks here in the bottom is a
Emits.
blockchain. So each node has its own copy. It's the same blockchain, but just different copies. And when you send a transaction, you send that transaction to all nodes. You literally broadcast that transaction to all nodes, and every node put that transaction inside the blockchain.
Mm.
And here you understand immediately, yeah, but if I do this, I cannot change the level of privacy of this blockchain because I set one and that's going to be it. I cannot change it.
Mm.
This is instead how Circular works. Circular has still the collection of computers like all the other networks, but instead of having one single blockchain, I have an indefined number of blockchains. And the logic is the same. For the node, there's really no difference. It's simply separation between the process and the data. So the algorithm that manages the blockchain and the blockchain itself. Then there are just multiple instances. So when I send a transaction, the only downside is that I have to say in which blockchain this transaction is going to go. That's
Mm.
a very minor thing. But what are the advantages of having this infrastructure working this way? Well, one thing is that this becomes now a parallel infrastructure. In a regular blockchain like the one we saw before, only one node at a time is minting a block, and all the other nodes in the network are waiting that that node is minting the block. Or even worse, like in Bitcoin, they all try to mint the block, but only one wins the competition. So all the electricity that has been wasted by all the different nodes is literally thrown away.
Mm.
On Circular, when one node is minting a block on one blockchain, other nodes can mint blocks on other blockchains. So there
Wow.
is a
Fascinating.
very uh, good way to manage the power, the electricity. It's sustainable. But now I can have multiple blockchains with different level of privacy because they are separate blockchains. I can have a blockchain that is only for, I don't know, for Massachusetts, where I have a level of privacy that gives access to that blockchain only to residents in Massachusetts.
Mm.
If we want to translate this in how Circular versus the other blockchains are seen, okay, this is all the other blockchains. So they have a large public network, which
Mm-hmm.
is public for everybody. And when, I don't know, a group of companies go and say, hey, I need a private chain, they have to spin out a new network,
Right.
which means you need to find the new node holders. You need to make sure that they have an economy that they can earn something in having the nodes. So, which means you really have to build an ecosystem to be able to run another blockchain network. And then inside that blockchain network, you have your blockchain. In most cases, you simply get a private centralized blockchain. And if it is centralized, it defeats the purpose of using a blockchain in the first place.
Right.
let's see what's the advantage of using circular instead. Because you add a blockchain to the same network, when you create your private blockchain, that blockchain is running now on a private network, sorry, on the public network. And you can say, hey, I want only nodes within Massachusetts to run my blockchain. But you don't have to go find the nodes. You already have the nodes in the big public blockchain network. So you don't have to start building a new ecosystem.
Right.
It's already there. So that means that you can spin out a new blockchain very easily, very cheaply, and with the level of privacy you want.
Right. Yeah, it seems like the real value here comes down to two things, like minting simultaneously in different chains, and then having your public and private blockchains on one decentralized like mainnet, like you called it here. Like
Yeah, and if you think about one of the main major issues on the other blockchain networks is that not many operators want to run their nodes because if they don't have enough volume, they don't earn. They use more electricity than what they really earn.
yeah,
In a model like this, because you can have multiple chains now, and every owner is going to bring more traffic, it is obviously increasing the level of traffic you can eventually reach
right, right. Yeah, well
on
said.
this system.
I think there's with talk of blockchain in the market, like this technology is fascinating to me. I think the value case is like very clear on like how your architecture work is different than other network architectures for blockchain. I get it. Like I think there's always the question that comes to mind is, well, what is the real world value in for healthcare? And I think for circular, from what I understand, you guys have already onboarded over like 30 projects this year, from pharmacies to specialty care groups. Can you share with us like one or two success stories that highlight, your blockchain, your L1 blockchain's real world value in healthcare?
Sure. I mean, the first and most logic example is a network of 8,000 pharmacies in Italy. It is the Smart Share network. And they are pharmacies where essentially you go get tests directly in the pharmacy instead of going to a clinic. And in that case, the medical record is certified, just like in the demo I've been showing you. All the time, a new change happen, a new certificate is issued on that record. The owner of the record is the patient, not the company, not the institution. So you can benefit from the ownership of that record, and you can share with whoever you want. That's why it's called Smart Share.
Hmm.
There is another important project we are following right now. Unfortunately, I don't have yet an okay for disclosure, but we're working with one of the most important uh, government agencies, and we are working on the. So the new administration is trying to bring back drug production into United States, and to bring back drug production, there need to be some changes, and these changes need to be not only on the political point of view, but also on taxes, but also on the regulation point of view, on the certification of the drugs.
Hmm.
So, without to go too much in details, we are pretty much working as data trust layer for the certification of drug productions, and we are collaborating, trying to build pretty much a standard for this. And
Fascinating.
we're working with a great partner, which is a pharmaceutical company, which is when this thing will be out, you will see the incredible things these people are doing, and I think that this is gonna be an historical change for the healthcare industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you certainly took it up a level from going from 8,000 pharmacies, a network, to working with important government agencies and helping bring drug production back into the US. Like there are definitely definitely a level of certification like we talked about that's applicable to bringing drugs to market and certifying those, if we're going to bring that back or bring more of that into the US. So,
Don't get me wrong, we are very early in this vertical, And obviously, there is a price to be paid for that at this stage, meaning that we are in a phase where we are not only implementing the technology, but we are also educating
Mm,
the market and the regulators on the advantages of using the technology, the
right.
solution.
Right.
But was a choice, was a conscious choice made because we just realized that there was a huge need, which will be translated in a
Right.
huge demand very soon, in my opinion.
Right. Absolutely. I think you and I have related on that. There's like education in the market is absolutely important, but there's so many use cases that can be powered by blockchain, specifically L1s like your guys is at Circular, that we have yet to even like explore. I would argue a lot of them. The possibilities are endless with certifying
Right.
data and using the blockchain to like power a lot of these applications like we talked about.
So right now there is this. What is happening is the following: there are a number of projects that wants to use blockchains for data. They are classified as decentralized science (DeSci) projects. For the majority, probably they're using even other chains. But when they start growing and they realize that they need to pay attention on the tools they're using, because the healthcare and science require certification, require compliance.
Mm,
When they learn, they come to work with us. Like, it doesn't matter the size. We have been onboarding small startups and we have been onboarding very large companies.
mm,
And again, it's a no brainer when you know what you're doing. The idea is I want to use this tool. I don't care how it's made, how it's done, how it's work. All I care is that it works and is compliant
right.
because it's something I don't have to take care of.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you want to build on chain, like you're gonna have to use an L1 again, like Circular or something
Yeah.
else in the market that is follows those compliance protocols for healthcare and life sciences. Like that's incredibly
And that's
important.
the other thing. You need to to educate also the certification bodies because now
Yeah.
again we are really at the beginning. If you look at the technology life cycle curve, usually there is like a small ramp and then there is like a steep ramp and then there is a plateau. No? So we are at the very beginning, right after the slow slope, and then
Yeah.
there is the steep slope. We are right in that corner,
Yep.
and that's when everybody starts becoming aware, but they need to be educated in what the advantages are. And so our effort is really this one is really educating all the different stakeholders of this market.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but I have to tell you, the first time they laugh, the second time they kind of have an epiphany, and then they get excited.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, the possibilities are endless, and I'm a big proponent of the blockchain and using it to power applications for healthcare and life sciences. I want to go quickly back to something with the demo you gave us with like certifying like the patient record. Like, there's a lot of talk in the market. Everyone's focused on like decentralized patient records. But from my discussions with you, you have shared like the bigger problem is actually like research and clinical data aren't original or verifiable. Can you explain a little bit of what that means and like how you guys are helping solve that for some of the projects you're working on?
Yeah. So let's go in order. So the first thing is a decentralization of you know uh, medical records. Why there is a need for that? There is a need because if I can decentralize the medical record, I can monetize the record and I can let the user participate to that monetization. And part of that monetization can cover some of the healthcare expenses.
Mm,
And that is, in my opinion, a smart paradigm. Nobody's saying to the institution, hey, you are not going to make money over the data anymore. No, you're still going to make the money on the data. You're just going to share part of those revenues. But you might have access now to a more complete record because you can reconcile different providers' information into a single record. You get a share, but it's the share of a more valuable record. Adding the certification to that is very important because now you have a proof of where that record is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You have a certification of quality. So let's say that I want to train an AI. The FDA now has been releasing articles that they want to massively rely on AI. What I think is happening is that in this moment they need a bit deeper understanding of what that entails. And the story is that I'm going to sound a little bit superficial here, but
I'll go for it.
until today, if there was a bad actor, let's say everybody's talking bad about pharmaceutical company, let's say a bad pharmaceutical company, and they wanted to sell their product, what they needed to do was handing checks to doctors and have those kind of relationships.
Right.
It's bad to say, but we know that happened.
It happened. Yeah. It
Yeah.
has happened.
So in the future, in a future where there is a lot of AI, you don't even need to do that. It's even simpler.
Mm.
All you need to do is to intercept the data in the supply chain and bias the data. I don't know. For example, you have a product and you go in the medical record of which not the one that are in the hospital, but the one that are sold to company that train the AI with that medical records, and you go remove all the collateral effects of your product. Then when you train the AI eventually is going to say that your product has no collateral effects because it's
Mm.
based on statistics it's going to make. And now you have used an AI pretty much like a Trojan horse, an ultimate Trojan horse, because today AI is being considered like the TV in the 80s, in the 90s, like a fact checker. If it's on TV, it's true.
Right.
If the AI says so, it must be true. So it becomes even worse now because you can use the AI, you can get an explanation to support the answer that sounds reasonable because there is a reasoning behind, but is based on biased data. So
Mm.
unless you have a way to connect the data to the AI and to the answer to the AI, you have no way to audit that AI. So
Right.
even if you are using that data now for a research and you give to a human being, it's the same thing. You give a research with biased data to a researcher, you want to demonstrate, I don't know, that a certain drug is not that bad like they were saying. All you need to do is give the right blob of data, and they're going to write a number of papers about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if instead the data is certified at its source, you cannot do that anymore because the data, even if you sell and buy the data, that data is carrying that certification.
Right.
And this is there is another collateral effect that is actually a positive one. It is that when you have a certification, you can now have an index of quality of your data. So you can say, hey, I got a record of Gianluca, which is 50 years old. So has 50 years of uncertified data, but the last 3 years are certified
Mm.
versus a kid that was born 3 years ago that has 100% of certified data. So now you can start building data with an index of quality, which can be a very good thing for the market because when you use AI or use data for research, you can now grade the quality of the data you're using.
Yep. Yeah. You're almost making this argument that, like, from what I understand, like AI adoption in healthcare requires more than just data, because with in this future with AI, you can essentially like intercept data, you have incomplete data, like you're saying, if you're a 50-year-old and your last 3 years have been certified, but the rest hasn't. And it's almost like you're making the case for like this requires a blockchain, right, to like certify the data. You can't just have AI running these like with these, whether it's like open source, you have your own like LLMs and GPUs to power it. Like it's more than just a data component. Like at the end of the day, the data needs to be certified, but we're all moving in a trend in society where like we're almost like trusting what like your AI, like you, if you use Chat or Claude, like you trust what it gives you. You're building that trust, but we will need something long term to certify that longitudinal data or that entire comprehensive set of data.
It is.
Yeah.
Again, now you can have Claude that can, I don't know, can promote the use of certain languages over other, certain technical solutions over other because it's
Yeah.
biased. So I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying that it's a possibility that needs to be taken in consideration. And just because we have to put safeguards in place in the healthcare, in a very highly regulated industry,
Yeah.
and should not be only in healthcare. I think that now that there is the technical possibility, why not? So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to build is literally a data trust layer, a national data trust layer that can work with governments.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's clear you're on that path. And we've spoken a lot today about like the importance of trust and compliance and certification. I'd like to ask this question, but what do you still think is holding the industry back from broader adoption? You said we're in that point where like there's a you know a rise in adoption, but what still holds back the industry from like going and adopting like a
Well,
L1 like
first,
your guys' or blockchain in general?
first of all, the fact that 99.9% of blockchains are built for DeFi, so everybody relies on a crypto. Do Circular relies on a crypto? Yes, but we have abstracted the crypto away from the enterprise adoption through a proper stack.
Mm,
So that means that if you use Circular, you can make a choice, and there are two different technological stack. There is a standard API, which works like with every other blockchain, and then there is an enterprise API, which doesn't have crypto involved. You pay for certificates, literally, and that is very compatible. So that's why we're not having a lot of friction in working
mm,
with institutions, because we have been doing the homework on the certification side. We've been doing the homework on this abstracting away the crypto, because obviously you are an hospital and say, well, I don't want to depend on a crypto that
right,
can have an oscillation of 20% in 2 hours, or
right,
that can be used for scams or other things. I don't want to do that.
yep,
So the only way is to try to create the proper infrastructure, and it's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, we're building technology to accommodate the real life needs,
yep,
not vice versa. We don't have to conform to what the developer of the blockchain need.
mm,
It should be the blockchain to come toward the user, not the other way around.
that's
So
well said.
blockchain is a valid technology. It's undoubted. It is what it is. Now let's make the blockchain sustainable, secure, compliant, and with all the different features needed for the mass adoption. Because the mass adoption, and what people don't understand, is not retail. The mass adoption is enterprise.
Hmm.
When you go institutions and enterprises, they're going to carry the retail into the blockchain. So DeFi, it's just the beginning. It's the very tip of the iceberg.
Right, right. And it sounds like most of the projects you guys are digging into on the enterprise side are relying on those enterprise APIs. That doesn't involve crypto, like you're saying, like your
We
standard
had to
level.
make some hard choices.
Yeah.
So we have a crypto because you need to pay transaction for the node. So you
Right.
need to create the economical ecosystem. You say, but why don't you do that in dollars? Because dollars is not cross border.
Right.
It start implying a lot of other things. Instead, if you build a cryptocurrency, it's much easier, and it's much more. It's easier to build an ecosystem now using the crypto.
Yeah. It's been
Uh,
there. That technology has been there for years now. Like the.
Yeah, so the only thing is that we had to build a crypto and tailor the tokenomics to make it not
Yeah.
appealing for pump and dumps. So
Right.
we had to build a boring cryptocurrency, and with the idea to have a cryptocurrency that is working
Yeah.
like a currency for creating this
Right.
ecosystem, not to do pump and dumps. It's
Right. Right.
as a different objective. That's all.
Right. It may be boring for the DeFi folks that are used to, traditional blockchains with crypto transactions,
It's a
but for you
gambling
guys,
that.
it's. Oh, sorry.
That is a gambling. It's a
Yeah.
new type of gambling.
Right. Exactly. But with you guys are really building this intelligent like architecture and L1 that allows enterprises to plug in and build on chain with you guys. And you've done it in a way where it makes that verifiable, trustworthy, and compliant. Like that's what I've gained from this conversation, and it's fascinating the direction you guys are headed in. And with that said, like for anyone who is looking to build on chain and partner with a company like yours, like at Circular and your team, what's the best place to start? How do they reach out, engage with your team online?
Well, so if they want to build, it's very easy. They have to go on our website, circularlabs.io, go through our GitHub. They have libraries that they can download, and the integration in Circular can be done in my opinion, in minutes, but let's say in a couple of hours, being
Okay.
pessimistic. It's very simple, especially the enterprise version. It's like 20 lines of code and you are fully integrated in Circular. No
Fascinating.
wallets, no. And then you use our interface Connect, which is a dashboard for the IT personnel. Instead, if for small businesses that they don't have their own version of software, because otherwise you using the blockchain in that case means that they have their own software and they add the blockchain as a feature instead for, let's say, the small business that don't have their custom software. What we do in that case, for example, we have products like certify, which is
Hmm.
this very simple tool that run also on the cell phone. You can create certificates from any file, so you can take literally a file of any kind and you can very easily create a certificate for this
Hmm.
one. You can put a name, a description if you want, uh, and then you issue the certificate. Now, why would you want to do this? Because now you have created a synchronization point between this file and this instant,
Hmm.
and there will be a proof that that file at any time is in its original form.
Right. It's like
And then you
one-off
can
like
have
certifications basically that are required.
So you sign a PDF with someone today, and in 2 years, someone says, "Okay, show me the PDF." You send the PDF. Say, it's signed. Yes, it's signed. Here is the certificate that proves that that PDF was not tampered. So for the PDF is obvious, clearly, but if it is for a song, for
Hmm.
a piece of art, or any other kind of file format, it becomes a little bit less obvious.
Yeah.
And instead, now you can send the proof through iStamp,
Right.
which is,
The product that you're saying. Yeah. Very
yeah,
fascinating. Oh yeah, I absolutely am very impressed with what you guys have built. Not just like you're starting with your, I mean, just building your own layer one blockchain is impressive on its own, but the fact that you guys are gaining steam with different projects and inviting like all the way from pharmacies to larger enterprises to even government agencies to build on chain with you guys is amazing, and it's a journey that I'm looking forward to staying in touch with. And like you said, we're at that point where it may feel flat right now, but it's going to really, the adoption curve will really spike in these next few years with this, and the need for, just looking retrospectively at data, or hey, we're a health system when we have all this data that's not certified. Like there's pressure from regulatory bodies like the CMS, and there's going to be more mandates and requirements to fulfill, right? And if your data is not certifiable or even verifiable, it makes it harder to do that long term. So and with the advent of AI, that gets multiplied, of course, because AI is able to ingest more data, and you start to feed it more data. So the need for a solution like this, a tech like this, makes a lot of sense.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. Well, Gianluca, thank you so much for making some time today, and appreciate you hopping on the podcast, and excited to get the word out on Circular, and appreciate you making some time here today. Thank you.
that was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.